The evening always started the same way. Soft light spread slowly across the living room as the sun disappeared behind the quiet neighborhood roofs, leaving the world wrapped in warm golden shadows. Inside the small house, the air smelled faintly of cinnamon tea and old wooden furniture polished by years of gentle hands. The woman stood near the kitchen counter, moving slowly, almost carefully, as if the silence of the evening was something sacred. Outside, children's distant laughter faded into the calm rhythm of night. The clock above the hallway door ticked softly. Tick. Tick. Closer to 11. And the dog was already waiting. He sat beside the large window facing the street, his body still, his posture patient, like someone who understood time better than humans did. He was a golden-coated dog with soft, dark eyes that reflected the indoor light like warm, quiet stars. Not restless. Not anxious. Just present. The woman walked slowly toward him, holding her cup of tea with both hands. The warmth of the cup pressed gently against her fingers. She didn't speak immediately, because this moment had become familiar. Every night at exactly 11, the dog would walk to this window and sit, as if he was guarding something invisible outside, or waiting for something only he could feel. "Are you watching the street again?" she whispered softly. Her voice was low, calm, like speaking to a sleeping child. The dog did not bark. He did not wag his tail. But his ears moved slightly when he heard her voice. Just a small, living response. Then he turned his head halfway toward her, eyes soft, patient, respectful, like acknowledging her presence before returning to his silent duty. The woman smiled. A small, warm smile that carried both love and quiet curiosity. She placed one hand gently on the dog's head. His fur was warm from the indoor air, soft beneath her fingers. The dog closed his eyes for a moment. Not fully. Just halfway, like accepting comfort while still keeping watch outside. Then he looked forward again. To the street. To the night. To something waiting in the darkness that had never been spoken aloud. The neighborhood outside was quiet tonight. Streetlights stood like tired guardians along the empty road. A slow wind moved the leaves of the old maple tree near the corner house, creating a soft whispering sound that blended with the breathing silence of the house. The woman remembered when this ritual first began. It had started without warning. One evening months ago, the dog had suddenly stopped playing with his toy near the sofa. Instead, he walked directly to the window, sat down, and stared outside. It was exactly 11. She had checked the clock. Because it felt strange. Not frightening. Just meaningful in a way she couldn't explain. At first she thought he heard something outside. Maybe a cat walking across the roof. Maybe a car passing far away. But nothing unusual ever appeared. The dog simply sat there. Every night. Like a quiet appointment he could not miss. Some of her neighbors had noticed. One evening, the man living next door had laughed gently when he saw them through the window while returning from his evening walk. "Your dog has better discipline than my alarm clock," he had said. "Why does he do it?" The woman had smiled politely. "I think he knows something I don't." The neighbor had raised an eyebrow. But he didn't ask more. Because sometimes people hear answers in silence without needing words. Tonight, the woman took a small step closer to the window. The glass was slightly cool when she rested her palm on it. Outside, the streetlight near the mailbox flickered once, then settled into steady glow again. The dog's ears lifted slightly. Not sharply. Just a gentle awareness, like a person hearing a familiar song starting in the distance. The woman followed his gaze. But she saw only the empty street. No movement. No shadow passing between the houses. Nothing unusual. Yet inside her chest, there was a strange warmth, not excitement, not worry, just the feeling of being close to something important without understanding why. "Do you miss someone?" she whispered. The words were almost carried by her breath rather than spoken aloud. The dog did not answer in human language. But his tail touched the wooden floor once, very softly, as if acknowledging the question. Then he resumed watching the street. Patient. Focused. Purposeful. Like someone guarding a memory that had not yet finished speaking. The woman remembered the first night she noticed the pattern. She had tried to distract him. She had brought his favorite chew toy. She had called his name gently. Come play. But the dog only turned his head toward her for a moment, eyes calm, respectful, as if saying thank you but not now. Then he returned to the window. The behavior was never forced. Never anxious. Just quietly determined. As if the dog believed that standing watch was more important than play. A soft breeze slipped through the slightly open window. Night air carried the faint scent of blooming flowers from the garden behind the house. The woman inhaled slowly. Beside her, the dog's nose moved slightly as if tasting the invisible fragrance of the night. The clock moved closer. 10:59. Then 11. The dog's posture changed almost imperceptibly. He straightened slightly. Like someone hearing the arrival of a moment he had been waiting for all day. The woman watched him. Watched the street. Watched the quiet night holding its breath around them. A question rested silently inside her heart. She had never asked it directly before. Because she felt that some answers should arrive on their own, like morning sunlight touching a sleeping face. But tonight felt a little different. Tonight, the air carried something softer. Something deeper. The dog's eyes were unusually focused. Not tense. Not excited. Simply, full of quiet expectation. And somewhere in the stillness of that 11 o'clock night, the woman felt, without knowing why, that the dog was waiting for someone. Or something. And what the dog sensed at 11 p.m. would change everything? The night deepened slowly, like breathing into a dream. Inside the house, the yellow light from the table lamp spread across the wooden floor, making the living room feel softer, warmer, quieter. The woman sat on the chair beside the window now. Not speaking. Just watching. Because she had learned that the dog's ritual was not something to interrupt. The clock ticked calmly above them. 11 past 3 minutes. The dog was still sitting in the same place. Eyes forward. Body still. Breathing slow and steady, matching the quiet rhythm of the night. Outside, a car passed at the far end of the street. The faint sound of wheels rolling over asphalt drifted through the night air, soft, distant, almost like a memory moving through darkness. The dog's ears moved slightly. Not suddenly. Not sharply. Just a gentle tilt. Like someone listening to music that no one else could hear. The woman noticed. She always noticed these small movements. Because they were the only language the dog used during this ritual. A small tightening of his shoulders sometimes. A subtle shift in his gaze. Tiny signals, like emotional whispers. "Did you hear something?" she asked softly. The dog did not respond with sound. But after a few seconds, he lifted his right paw slightly and placed it back down again, slow, deliberate, almost thoughtful. The woman felt a strange warmth in her chest. It was not sadness. Not happiness. Just connection. She remembered reading somewhere that animals sometimes notice things before humans do, not in a supernatural way, but through senses humans rarely trust anymore. She wondered what the dog was sensing tonight. The street outside was empty. The mailbox stood alone beneath the flickering light. The maple tree near the corner house swayed slowly in the night wind, its leaves producing a soft ocean-like sound when touched by air. The woman followed the dog's gaze again, trying to see what he saw. But there was only darkness between the houses, broken occasionally by the warm rectangles of light coming from other people's windows. Life continuing quietly behind glass. She leaned slightly closer to the dog. His fur touched her sleeve. Warm. Comforting. Familiar. "Are you waiting for someone?" she whispered. The words were barely louder than breathing. The dog blinked once. Slowly. Like someone considering a question carefully. Then he moved his head very slightly, not toward her, not toward the window, but somewhere between them. As if the answer was not simple enough to be spoken in one direction. The woman's heart softened at that moment. Because sometimes silence carries more meaning than speech. She remembered the day she first brought the dog home. He had been smaller then, clumsier, running across the living room floor chasing the reflection of sunlight bouncing from her phone screen. Back then, he would sleep curled near her feet, sometimes placing his head gently on her ankle as if checking that she was still there. She had named him quietly after watching him spend hours lying beside the window in her old apartment. Even then, he liked watching outside. But the 11 o'clock ritual began only after they moved to this house. The woman did not know why. But she felt that something in this house, or something outside it, had started the pattern. A faint vibration of wind passed across the window glass. The dog's nose moved slightly again. Almost imperceptibly. Like tasting air. Like recognizing a scent carried from somewhere far away. The woman followed his reaction carefully. But she could smell only night air, and the gentle tea aroma still resting in her cup. The street light flickered once more. Then stayed steady. 11 past 12 minutes. The dog straightened his posture slightly. Like someone preparing to greet a guest who had not yet arrived. The woman felt her heartbeat slow, matching the quiet rhythm of the moment. "Do you feel lonely when you sit here?" she asked. The question was not meant to disturb the silence. Just to share it. The dog turned his head halfway toward her again. His eyes were soft. Not sad. Not joyful. Just deeply aware. Then he pressed his head gently against her arm for a moment, very briefly, like answering without words. The woman closed her eyes for half a second. Because that small gesture felt like warmth spreading quietly inside her chest. She thought about how dogs sometimes understand emotions through breathing patterns, body movements, and heart rhythms shared over time. She wondered if the dog had learned her sadnesses and joys the same way she had learned his small silent signals. Outside, a distant train horn echoed faintly across the night horizon. Long. Soft. Melodic in its loneliness. The dog's ears lifted slightly higher. Not tense. Just attentive. As if recognizing a sound that carried meaning beyond the neighborhood. The woman watched him carefully. There was something beautiful about the way he waited. Not like a guard afraid of danger. But like someone who believed that the night was holding a promise. The clock ticked again. 11 past 20 minutes. The street remained empty. Yet the dog's gaze never wavered. The woman felt curiosity growing quietly inside her. Not urgency. Not fear. Just gentle wonder. "What are you protecting?" she whispered. The dog did not answer. But his tail touched the floor once again. Slow. Intentional. Like a silent agreement between heartbeats. The night wind moved across the garden outside, carrying the faint rustle of leaves against the wooden fence. And in that stillness, the woman felt something unexpected. Not a warning. Not sadness. But the quiet feeling that the dog was waiting with purpose. As if he believed someone important would appear when the night was ready. Someone the woman could not yet see. Someone whose arrival was carried inside the patient heartbeat of a golden dog sitting at a window every night at 11. And the mystery of his intuition grew deeper with every passing breath of darkness. The woman started paying closer attention after that night. Not with anxiety, but with gentle curiosity. Like someone studying a beautiful song that they did not want to end. The following evening, she sat slightly farther from the window while pretending to read a book. The living room light was warmer tonight, softer, filtered through a yellow glass lampshade that made shadows feel sleepy and calm. The dog moved through his evening routine quietly. He ate his dinner slowly near the kitchen corner, drank water, then walked toward the window without being told. The clock was approaching 11 again. Step by step. The dog's movement was natural, confident, as if he trusted the timing of the world itself. The woman closed her book but kept it resting on her lap. She watched him carefully. Tonight the street outside looked slightly different because a light mist had begun gathering near the road. The mist was thin, almost invisible, glowing faintly under the streetlights like breath in cold air. The dog sat down. Same place. Same posture. Eyes focused forward. The woman noticed something new tonight. His breathing was slightly slower than usual. Deep. Measured. Almost ceremonial. As if preparing his mind for something important. "Do you know what time it is?" she asked softly. The dog tilted his head a little. Not fully confused, not fully understanding. Just listening. The woman smiled gently. She knew he did not understand human time the way people did. But she sometimes felt that he understood emotional time. The kind that moves when hearts are ready. The clock reached 11. The night became quieter. Even the distant traffic sound seemed to slow down. The woman placed her book on the table beside her. She stood up slowly and walked closer to the window. The wooden floor made a faint warm sound under her steps. The dog's ears reacted slightly to the movement. But he did not turn away from the street. She stood beside him now. Close enough that her shoulder almost touched his back. The window glass reflected faint shapes of both of them, human and dog, standing together inside the golden light of the room. Outside, the mist drifted slowly across the empty road. Streetlights blurred softly inside it like glowing pearls lost inside milk-colored air. "Why do you come here every night?" she asked. This time the question was spoken more directly. Not loudly, but clearly enough to feel serious. The dog did not answer immediately. He blinked once. Then twice. Then he shifted his weight slightly and placed his front paw a little more forward, a movement she had begun to recognize as his thinking posture. The woman waited. Because she had learned that the dog sometimes needed silence before responding through behavior. After about half a minute, the dog lifted his nose slightly toward the window crack where the night air entered. The woman followed his motion. Trying to understand. The air outside carried something faint. Very faint. Almost impossible to notice. But the dog's nose moved slowly, deliberately, tracing the invisible path of the scent. She wondered if it was the smell of another animal. Or something carried from far away. Or simply the natural breath of the night. "Are you listening to someone?" she whispered. The dog's tail touched the floor once. Slow. Meaningful. Not excited. Not sad. Just acknowledgement. The woman felt a soft tightening inside her chest. Not fear, but the strange beauty of not knowing. She thought about how animals sometimes respond to sounds humans cannot hear, higher frequencies, distant movements, or tiny environmental shifts that the human body ignores. But tonight felt different. Because the dog's focus was not restless. It was patient. Like someone waiting for a familiar signal. The mist outside thickened slightly. The streetlight near the mailbox flickered once more. Then stabilized. The woman noticed something else. The dog's ears were angled slightly toward the east side of the street, where the old park entrance stood beyond 3 houses. She followed his gaze, but saw nothing except the quiet road and the shadow of the maple tree. The wind moved gently again. The leaves whispered softly against each other. The dog's breathing slowed even more. Almost meditative. The woman felt an unexpected emotion rising inside her. Not sadness. Not curiosity alone. But a feeling close to reverence. As if she was witnessing something sacred without understanding why. She remembered how the dog used to sleep near her feet when she was sick last winter. He had refused to leave the room for 2 nights. He only left briefly to drink water or stretch his legs before returning to lie beside her again. No barking. No panic. Just quiet companionship. The woman placed her hand lightly on his back tonight. The dog did not move away. His fur was warm, alive, steady beneath her palm. She felt his heartbeat through the soft rhythm of his body. Slow. Strong. Comforting. Like a small living clock inside warm sunlight. "Are you protecting me?" she asked quietly. The question carried more emotion than words. The dog did not respond with sound. But after a few seconds, he leaned very slightly against her leg. Almost imperceptible. But meaningful. The woman closed her eyes for a moment. Because sometimes understanding arrives through touch rather than explanation. The clock moved forward. 11 past 30 minutes. The street remained quiet. But inside the woman's heart, curiosity was growing like a gentle flower opening slowly under morning light. She began wondering whether the dog was waiting. Or remembering. And the mystery behind his nightly window ritual felt deeper tonight. As if the answer was standing somewhere beyond the mist-covered street, listening quietly with patient, unseen eyes. The woman began changing small things in her evening routine. Not intentionally. But naturally. Like someone learning to move carefully around something precious. She started sitting beside the dog earlier before 11 approached. Sometimes she would bring a small bowl of warm milk and place it near the window just in case the night made him thirsty. The dog would drink it slowly if he wanted. If not, he would simply continue watching the street. Tonight, the sky was clearer than the previous night. The mist had disappeared after sunset, leaving the air sharper, cleaner, filled with the quiet brightness of distant stars. Indoor lights reflected softly on the window glass. The woman brushed her fingers gently through the dog's fur. Slow. Rhythmic. Almost like counting heartbeats without numbers. The clock moved toward 11 again. The ritual continued. The dog walked to the window at the usual time. No hesitation. No excitement. Just familiar certainty. He sat down and placed his tail neatly beside his body. The woman sat in the chair behind him tonight instead of standing beside the glass. She wanted to observe quietly. Like watching a painting that was still being drawn by invisible hands. Outside, the neighborhood looked peaceful. The maple tree near the corner house stood still under the night sky, its leaves dark silhouettes against scattered starlight. A faint wind carried the soft sound of insects singing somewhere far away in the summer night. The dog's ears moved once. Then remained still. The woman noticed his breathing tonight was slightly deeper than usual. Long inhalation. Slow exhalation. Like someone preparing their mind for something emotionally important. She wondered if animals felt anticipation the way humans did. Not the anxious kind. But the patient kind. The kind that waits for something meaningful. "Do you feel happy sitting here?" she asked softly. The dog did not answer immediately. Several seconds passed. Then he turned his head halfway toward her. His eyes were gentle, patient, almost understanding. After that, he turned back toward the window. But this time, his tail moved once. Slowly. Very slowly. Like a quiet affirmative answer. The woman felt warmth spread through her chest. Because sometimes love is spoken through the smallest movements. She thought about how their relationship had changed over time. At first, she had seen the ritual as curiosity. Then mystery. Now it felt closer to companionship. As if they were sharing a silent responsibility together. The streetlight near the mailbox flickered faintly tonight. Not completely off. Just a brief hesitation in brightness. The woman noticed the dog's reaction immediately. His ears lifted slightly. His posture straightened just a little more. Not tense. Just alert. Like someone recognizing a familiar signal. She followed his gaze, but again saw only the empty street and the soft shadow of the parked bicycle near the neighbor's fence. "Is it someone you know?" she whispered. The question was gentle, not demanding. The dog did not respond with movement for almost half a minute. Then something very small happened. He lifted his front right paw slightly, held it in the air for a brief moment, and placed it back down slowly. The woman's heart tightened softly, because she had begun to associate that movement with the dog's inner thoughts. It was not excitement. It was not fear. It was reflection. Outside, a distant dog barked once somewhere far across the neighborhood. The sound was low and solitary, like a note played quietly on a forgotten piano key. The golden dog at the window did not bark back. He simply listened. The woman noticed how still he became when hearing that sound, as if recognizing something personal inside it. She wondered whether dogs remembered voices the way humans remembered faces, or whether scent, sound, and emotional memory were woven together inside their minds like invisible threads. The clock moved to 11 past 18 minutes. The night felt suspended, like standing inside a breath held by the world itself. The woman leaned slightly closer to the dog. Her shoulder touched his side. Warm. Alive. Comforting. "I am here," she said quietly. Not because the dog seemed afraid, but because she felt it was important to say. The dog did not move away. Instead, he shifted his weight slightly so his body leaned just a little more toward her. Almost imperceptibly. Like sharing balance. The wind outside grew softer. The maple leaves stopped whispering. Even the distant insect sounds seemed to pause for a moment. The woman felt something strange tonight. Not revelation. Not fear. But emotional understanding growing slowly inside her heart. She began thinking that perhaps the dog was not only waiting. Perhaps he was keeping a promise. A promise written in instincts older than human language. She wondered who the promise was for. Or what memory lived quietly inside the patient heart of a dog sitting at a window every night at 11. And as the night deepened, the mystery felt closer. Like an invisible visitor standing beyond the mist of understanding, waiting for the right moment to speak. The neighbor visited on a Saturday evening. It happened naturally, like small conversations growing out of shared silence. The woman was watering the tiny flowers near her front door when she heard footsteps approaching along the sidewalk. Slow footsteps. Not hurried. Not loud. Just the comfortable pace of someone who was not in a rush to go anywhere. "Good evening," the neighbor said gently. He was an older man with kind eyes and a habit of wearing light gray shirts during summer nights. "Good evening," the woman replied. The man glanced briefly toward the house window before speaking again. "Does your dog still sit there every night?" The woman smiled. "Yes." The man nodded slowly. There was a pause between them, not uncomfortable, just respectful. Like two people standing near a quiet river, listening to water move without trying to control its direction. "I noticed him again last night," the neighbor said. "He sits at exactly 11, doesn't he?" "Yes," she answered softly. The neighbor scratched the back of his head gently, thinking. Then he spoke. "Have you ever wondered why?" The woman lowered the watering can slowly. She did not answer immediately, because the question was already living inside her heart. "I think he is waiting for something," she said after a while. The neighbor looked slightly surprised. "Waiting?" "Yes," she said. "But I don't know for what." The man stayed quiet for a moment. The evening sunlight was fading into the orange softness of sunset colors mixing with approaching night. The wind moved lightly across the street. Then the neighbor spoke again. "You know, animals sometimes remember things humans forget." The woman listened, not interrupting. "Sometimes," the man continued, "they keep habits connected to people or places that are gone." His voice was gentle. Not dramatic. Just thoughtful. The woman felt a small warmth inside her chest. Because she had begun thinking the same thing. "Did something happen before you moved here?" the neighbor asked carefully. The question was spoken slowly, like touching glass very softly to avoid breaking it. The woman considered it. "Yes," she said quietly. She remembered the old apartment. The smaller window. The different street. The day when the dog had first started sitting silently near her after receiving a phone call that changed her life. She never told anyone about that call. Because some memories are too fragile to speak aloud. The neighbor nodded slowly as if understanding that she did not want to explain further. "I think your dog is very loyal," he said. She smiled. "I think so too." There was another silence between them. The kind of silence that feels warm rather than empty. After a moment, the neighbor spoke again. "Last night, I was walking back from the park around 11. The woman looked at him. "And?" "I saw something interesting." He paused slightly, as if deciding how to describe what he saw. "I saw your dog raise his head a little higher than usual." The woman's heartbeat slowed slightly. "He didn't bark," the neighbor continued. "He just stared toward the old park entrance for a long time." The woman felt a soft tightening inside her chest. The old park entrance was 3 houses away, beyond the maple tree, where the streetlight sometimes flickered. "Did you see anything there?" she asked quietly. The neighbor shook his head. "No." Then he added softly, "But I felt like he was expecting someone to arrive." The woman did not speak immediately. The evening air felt warmer than before. Like the world itself was listening. "Sometimes," the neighbor said after a moment, "animals carry memories of people they loved." The woman nodded slowly. She thought about the way the dog sometimes pressed his body slightly closer to her at the window, as if sharing responsibility for standing watch. "Do you think he is remembering someone?" she asked. The question came quietly, almost like it was afraid of disturbing the night. The neighbor answered gently, "I don't know." Then he smiled faintly. "But I think he believes someone will return." The woman did not reply. Because something deep inside her chest moved softly at those words. Not sadness. Not happiness. Something closer to emotional recognition. Like finding a familiar star in a night sky you had been studying for years. She thanked the neighbor for visiting. He nodded and walked slowly back toward his house, footsteps blending into the evening silence. That night, the woman felt the ritual differently. When 11 approached, she sat beside the window earlier than usual. The dog walked to his place at exactly the same time. But tonight, the woman noticed something new. The dog did not sit immediately. He stood near the window for a few seconds, nose slightly lifted, breathing slowly, as if searching for something in the air. Then he sat down. The street outside was quiet. The maple tree shadows stretched gently across the road under yellow streetlight glow. The woman placed her hand softly on the dog's back. "Are you waiting for someone to come back?" she whispered. The dog did not move. But after a long moment, he lifted his head slightly higher, eyes fixed on the dark path leading toward the park entrance. The woman felt her heart become very quiet. Because she suddenly felt that the mystery was not about fear. It was about love that did not forget. And somewhere beyond the mist of understanding. The dog continued watching the night road patiently. believing in a promise carried inside the silent heartbeat of 11 o'clock darkness. The night changed slightly one summer evening. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but in the quiet way a mood changes when someone enters a room without speaking. The air felt softer, heavier, warmer at the same time. The woman noticed it first while preparing the dog's dinner. She moved slower tonight, almost as if the world itself was asking her to walk carefully. The dog seemed to feel it too. He ate his food, but not with his usual enthusiasm. Instead, he chewed slowly, pausing once between bites, as if his mind was already moving toward the coming night. When the clock approached 11, the woman felt a strange stillness inside her chest. Like standing in the moment just before a beautiful memory is about to reveal itself. The dog walked toward the window earlier than usual. He did not wait for her to follow. Tonight, his steps carried a subtle urgency, not fear, not excitement, just emotional readiness. The woman sat in the chair beside him. The indoor lamp was turned slightly lower tonight. Golden light filled the room like warm honey spreading across soft air. Outside, the street looked different. The wind was completely still. Even the maple leaves were motionless. The streetlight near the mailbox glowed steadily without flickering. But something felt expectant, as if the night was holding its breath. The dog's breathing changed. Very slightly. But the woman noticed. His inhalation was deeper, slower, more deliberate. She followed his gaze toward the old park entrance beyond the tree. Nothing moved there. No human figure. No animal shadow. Only the long empty road fading into darkness. "Do you feel something tonight?" she whispered. The dog did not answer immediately. Several long seconds passed. Then something small happened. The dog lifted his front paw and placed it forward slightly, the same thoughtful movement she had learned to recognize. But tonight, he did not immediately put it back down. He kept it there for almost 5 seconds. Like someone standing between two thoughts. The woman felt her heartbeat slow. Because tonight felt different. Not scary. Not sad. Just important. A distant sound came from far across the neighborhood. It was the sound of a bicycle bell carried faintly by wind from another street. The dog's ears lifted sharply for a moment, then relaxed slowly. The woman saw something she had never noticed before. There was a very slight tremble in the dog's tail, not visible unless you were watching closely. Not excitement. Not fear. Something closer to emotional anticipation. The clock reached 11. Exactly. The dog straightened his posture. Slowly. Like someone greeting an invisible arrival. The woman felt something tighten gently inside her chest. Because she suddenly sensed that tonight was the turning point. She did not know how she knew. But the feeling was strong. The air outside seemed heavier, fuller, like the night was about to speak quietly. Then it happened. A movement. Very small. At the far end of the street near the park entrance, a shape appeared briefly under the streetlight. Not walking. Not running. Just standing. The woman's eyes focused immediately. But the shape was too distant to recognize clearly. It looked like a human silhouette for only a second, then shifted slightly when the wind moved the tree branches. The dog's body became completely still. Not tense. Not afraid. Just focused. His eyes were locked toward that direction. The woman felt her breath slow. "Do you see someone?" she whispered. The dog did not move. The silhouette did not approach. It remained near the dark edge where light met shadow. The woman blinked once. And when she looked again, the shape was gone. Like someone stepping quietly away into darkness. But the dog did not relax. His gaze remained fixed on the same place. The woman felt her heart beating softly but strongly inside her chest. Not fear. Only deep emotional curiosity. "Are they coming back?" she asked very quietly. The dog did not answer. But his breathing became slower, deeper, like someone waiting with patient faith. The wind moved again across the street, this time carrying a faint rustle of leaves from the park direction. The dog lifted his nose slightly, then made a small movement she had never seen before. He lifted his head higher, eyes soft, body relaxed but attentive, like greeting someone he trusted. The woman's eyes became moist without knowing why. Because in that moment, she felt something she could not explain. Not sadness. Not joy. But recognition. As if she was standing near the edge of a memory she had not yet lived. The dog kept watching the empty road. Patient. Loyal. Certain. Waiting for someone the night had not yet allowed to return. And inside the quiet summer darkness, the promise carried by the golden dog's heart continued breathing softly, between light and shadow, between memory and hope. The woman did not sleep well that night. Not because she was afraid, but because her heart felt unusually awake. She lay in bed for a long time, listening to the quiet rhythm of the house. The ceiling fan moved slowly overhead, pushing warm summer air across the room in gentle circles. She thought about the silhouette she had seen near the park entrance. And she thought about the way the dog had lifted his head like greeting someone invisible. When morning came, she felt the weight inside her chest had softened. Not disappeared. Just changed. Like a story waiting for its final chapter. That evening, she decided to do something she had never done before. When 11 approached, she did not sit inside the living room first. Instead, she opened the front door and walked slowly outside with the dog beside her. The night air felt cooler outside. The sky was deep blue-black, filled with distant stars shining quietly above the neighborhood. Streetlights cast long soft circles of light onto the sidewalk. The dog did not pull the leash. He walked calmly, confidently, like someone returning to a place he knew well. They walked 3 houses down, past the maple tree, toward the old park entrance. The woman's heartbeat moved slowly. Not nervous. Just emotionally alert. When they reached the streetlight near the park, the dog stopped walking. Exactly there. He sat down. The woman stood beside him. The wind moved gently across the empty path leading into the park darkness. The night was very quiet. Then 11 o'clock arrived. The woman felt it inside her chest even before checking the time. The dog's posture changed slightly. He lifted his head higher. Eyes focused toward the park path. Breathing slow. Measured. Reverent. The woman followed his gaze. "Is this where you wait?" she whispered. The dog did not move. After several seconds, she spoke again. "Are you waiting for someone you loved?" The words were soft, careful, respectful. Like speaking inside a sacred room. The dog blinked once. Slowly. Then something happened that the woman would remember for the rest of her life. The dog made a very gentle movement closer to her leg, pressing his body softly against her. Almost like seeking reassurance. Or sharing strength. Her eyes became warm with unshed tears. Because she suddenly felt the truth inside her heart before it was spoken. She placed her hand gently on the dog's head. And whispered, "It's okay." The wind moved again. Carrying the faint sound of leaves brushing against each other inside the park. Then she said it. The thought she had been carrying silently for a long time. "I think you were waiting for my husband." The night did not answer. But the world felt quieter. The dog did not react with surprise. He simply stayed still. Breathing slowly. Like someone who already knew the words before they were spoken. The woman continued softly. He loved this street. Her voice trembled slightly. He used to walk here every night before he became sick. The wind moved gently across the road. And you used to walk with him. The dog's tail touched the ground once. Slow. Meaningful. Like confirmation. The woman closed her eyes briefly. Memories rose quietly inside her heart. Her husband used to stand near the park entrance and talk about how beautiful the neighborhood looked under night lights. He would say the street felt peaceful after 11, like the world was resting. After he passed away, the woman had felt something missing inside the house. But she had never imagined that the dog might feel it too. "I think," she whispered, voice very soft, "you started coming here because you remember him." The dog did not move. But he lifted his head slightly higher, toward the park path, like someone greeting a familiar presence carried inside the wind. Tears rolled slowly down the woman's cheeks. Not painful tears. Warm tears. Because the truth was not sad. It was beautiful. The dog had not been guarding danger. He had been keeping a promise written inside loyalty. Every night at 11, he came here to stand watch, believing that the person he loved might one day return in memory, in spirit, or in the quiet feeling carried by the summer wind. The woman knelt slowly beside the dog and hugged him gently. The dog did not resist. He simply stayed still, allowing her heart to rest against his warm fur. "I know you miss him too," she whispered. The night breeze moved softly around them. Like the world itself was comforting the living in the memory of the loved one who was gone. After a long moment, the woman stood up again. She looked toward the dark park entrance. And inside her heart, there was no sadness. Only peaceful understanding. Because love does not disappear when someone leaves. Sometimes it walks quietly inside the heart of a golden dog, and waits every night at 11, believing in the beauty of a promise that time cannot break. The summer night felt softer after the truth was spoken. Not lighter. Not brighter. But calmer, like a heart that has finally found a place to rest. The woman and the dog walked slowly back toward the house. The street was quiet. The maple tree stood still under the night sky, its leaves dark and peaceful against the distant stars. The streetlight near the mailbox shone warm yellow light across the sidewalk. The woman did not speak for a while. Because some emotions do not need words after understanding arrives. The dog walked beside her with steady, comfortable steps. Not rushing. Not stopping. Just sharing the rhythm of breathing with the woman whose heart carried both memory and love. When they reached the front door, she opened it slowly. The indoor light welcomed them with gentle golden warmth. The dog walked directly to the window. As he always did. The clock on the wall showed 10 minutes before 11. The woman prepared a small bowl of fresh water and placed it near the window. Then she sat in the chair beside him. Tonight felt different. Not because the ritual changed, but because the mystery inside her heart had softened. The dog sat quietly, eyes facing the street, patient as always. But the woman noticed something new tonight. His body felt more relaxed, more peaceful, like someone who had finished an important duty. The wind outside was calm. The night sky was clear. Stars shimmered softly above the neighborhood like distant lanterns guarding the silence of the world. The clock ticked closer. 10:58. 10:59. And then 11. The dog did not straighten his posture suddenly like before. Instead, he simply lifted his head slowly, like greeting an old friend who had been expected for a long time. The woman placed her hand gently on his back. She did not speak immediately, because she felt that something sacred was happening inside the quiet air of the room. Outside, the park path remained dark, empty, peaceful. The maple leaves moved slightly under a soft summer breeze. The woman felt a warmth spreading inside her chest, not sadness, not longing, but completion. She understood now. The dog was not waiting because he believed the past could return physically. He was waiting because love carries memory even when the body is gone. He stood guard every night because loyalty is not measured by presence, but by intention. "Thank you," she whispered very softly. The dog did not move, but his tail touched the floor once. Slow. Meaningful. Like a final quiet answer. The woman closed her eyes and imagined her husband walking along the park path under night light, smiling the way he used to smile when talking about peaceful streets and summer winds. She felt no loneliness inside that imagination. Only warmth. Because love had transformed from absence into memory that still lived inside heartbeats. The dog continued watching the street. But tonight, his gaze was softer. Not searching. Not expecting. Just honoring. The woman realized something quietly. The ritual did not end. But its meaning had changed. The dog was no longer waiting with restless hope. He was standing watch with peaceful remembrance. Like someone who has finished guarding a precious dream. After several minutes, the woman spoke gently. "You can rest now." The words were not a command. They were a blessing. The dog turned his head halfway toward her. Eyes warm. Understanding. Then he leaned his body slightly against her again, the same quiet gesture that had become their language over time. The woman smiled. And felt peace settle gently inside her heart like golden light resting on quiet water. The clock continued ticking softly. The night outside remained calm. The maple tree shadow moved slowly across the road under streetlight glow. Inside the house, human and dog sat together beside the window. Not as guardian in memory, but as companions sharing the beautiful silence of love that survives even when someone walks beyond the light. And every night after that, the dog still sat at the window at 11. But his eyes were no longer searching the darkness. They were simply watching the night, with peaceful heart, carrying the warmth of a promise that love never truly leaves.